Welcome back, everybody, to the Culture Base Podcast. I'm Dustin. He's Blake. We are the Culture Base, and we are excited to be with you on this Tuesday, March 19th. And this is episode 36, When to Cry Help. Blake, do you cry? Are you a crier?
I really appreciate you putting me on a vulnerable spot there. Yeah. I
know Enneagram Lakes.
I do
Enneagram
cry.
eights
The
just
older I get to, the
thrive.
more I cry.
Yeah.
I feel like I
That's
don't know
all.
if I just let things allow them to seep in more, and I'm just like, but even just like father-son commercials or moments
Yeah.
like that in movies, I'm like, shut up.
Yeah.
No, I'm not crying. You're stupid. You know, I had that kind of response. But
Yeah.
You? Because you can
Oh, very,
yeah,
very much.
Good.
It doesn't take anything. Now, I'm not crying at like pain. I'm
Yeah.
not like, I got a boo boo.
Because I'm tough,
But,
right?
right. 100%. I mean, I'm 240 some pounds of pure manhood. But
Pure.
0% body fat on this thing. I don't know. Your camera may be fooling you if you think you see otherwise. It's just a beard. Okay. Let's not.
So
let's
not from
get all-
pain, but other things.
Correct. Sorry, I got on a tangent there about. Correct. Not from pain, but yeah, other things. Like we were watching, just to date when we were recording this, we were watching the Oscars last night. And give me 8 bars of Billie Eilish singing the theme from Barbie, and I'm crying.
Yeah.
That's a great song.
Yeah, it's really good.
And it deserves all the accolades it can get. So we're going to talk about when to cry. For help. Today. Before we get into that, we want to remind you we're here to help leaders know what they're about, show where they're going, and build scalable teams to get them there, which we're going to talk a little bit more about today, as we do each week, obviously. If you are listening on audio podcast platform, thank you for listening. If you haven't already, we would encourage you to subscribe there where you're listening to this and leave a 5-star rating and review. It helps to get this content out even further. I'm sorry, I just got distracted by your mug. What is on this mug? This is a plug. This is a plug to watch on YouTube. What is on your mug? Hold the mug up.
Oh, it's my wife and I.
Okay.
Holding and embracing and our kids.
All right. Speaking of crying.
Yeah. I'm like, seriously, I'm not a gifts person, but when someone puts that intentional focus on gifts, that like this thing could have cost $4.50, but it hits me, right? You know, like even like I've got like a bracelet or whatever that says, from my girls, it says, "You'll always be the first man I ever loved." And I'm like, just stop it. And it's like one of my favorite gifts.
Even you just saying that got me stinging a little bit. I'm good. I got my eyes stinging.
Yeah,
a little bit. I had to figure out, was every time you raised the mug up, I kept seeing like just a woman, and I was like, does he have there's like some portrait of a woman on his mug? I don't know what's happening here. But then I didn't see you when you turned it around.
And be like,
anyway, that's
90s pastor, and be like, that's my smoking hot wife.
Yeah, smoking hot wife you wish you had. No, buddy, I don't. I'm pretty content with my own smoking hot wife. Appreciate it. Anyway, not to get on a tangent for the 90s pastors out there. That is a call, though, for you to be watching us on YouTube. If you're not already, hop on over there. If you are there, hello there. You get to see the mug that we're talking about, and my 0% body fat that we talked about earlier. Also, I don't know why you're laughing. It's very rude every time I say that.
Sorry. My bad.
Anyway, if you're watching on YouTube, we would love for you to hit the thumbs up button, like this mess that you're watching. And subscribe and ring the bell while you're there too, so you get notified every time we drop new content, which is a couple times throughout the week. You can follow us on social media, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, Facebook, all those types of places at The Culture Base, BASE. Or if you want to find out more about our company and what we can do for you, we would love to book a free 30-minute call with you at theculturebase.com/strategy. All right. All the business and hijinks. Well, I take that back. There'll be more hijinks, but all the business is out of the way. On to the episode today. We're going to talk about when to cry for help. Blake, in the world of hustle and figuring it out, it's tough to know when you're in over your head or you need to reach out for external collaboration. We are often told that help is a sign of weakness, but the truth is, if you want to level up your strategy and execution, you're always going to find more success and partnerships than you will if alone. Prime example, I love podcasts. If you haven't noticed, I love them so much. We started one. There's a great podcast out there called We're Here to Help. It is by Jake Johnson, who played Nick on New Girl. You ever watch New Girl?
I love New Girl.
New Girl's great. We're big fangirls of New Girl. Fanboys. So it's him and his partner Gareth Reynolds, who's also a comedian. And what they do is they have people call in with these really ridiculous problems. They've sent them an email first, so they kind of have a heads up a little bit on what the problem is. But they will listen to these people's really ridiculous problems about, hey, I have a roommate who dominates the common area, and I need to figure out how do I take it back. That's like one of the most recent ones I listened to. And they will offer them very ridiculous help. And then they will ask them to call back in once they have applied said help to give them an update on how it went. So it's just, as you can imagine, again, if you know Jake Johnson, there's a lot of chaos and comedy there with him. And so if you can imagine him giving you help, they kind of throw it out there as a theme of like, hey, what if we were just sitting at a bar together and you were telling me about what was going on, what help would I offer you, kind of thing. But this whole idea of help, Blake, I think is one that we tend to shy away from. I do think it's getting more and more socially acceptable.
Yeah, I do.
But especially post-pandemic, people really realized how much we need each other. But I love what Simon Sinek says about help. He says that changing the world takes more than everything any one person knows, but not more than we know together. I'm going to say that again because I stumbled through it. Changing the world takes more than everything any one person knows, but not more than we know together. Thus saith the Simon Sinek. Because we all believe and trust in him. How's that resonate with you, Blake? What in this help topic?
Yeah, I think especially for entrepreneurs and for people running businesses, they know that they can quickly get to things and they can get to those decisions. I can quickly jump in and make what I need to do happen. That just doesn't scale. Like there is a point that doesn't scale anymore. And there is a point, like you can take that far. I know that the whole, like, what is it? Like you can get there fast if you do it alone, but you can go far if you do it with people. And I think that there is an aspect, depending on the industry and depending on what you're doing, that you can go far in today's day and age. But there is a point where that's going to still require you. And you never created something that's like has a legacy and can last and can grow to a whole nother level. So that's where I think, yeah, I totally agree. And I think there's this gunslinger mentality that when you start up something, you really have this, like, I got to bootstrap everything mentality. And that is so, like, and I don't want to downplay words here, but that is so, like, traumatic too, that I think a lot of times people have this, they get caught in this closed loop where they're just not nonstop going through those same mentalities and doing those same things because that becomes their natural response. So yeah, my biggest, like, I think one of the biggest things you got to do in the beginning to help people see that is get them out of, like, hey, you're not there anymore. You are not doing the website anymore. You're not doing all the other things you have to do day to day. You're not having to do all those things. Take a breath. Let's get out of there so we can make better decisions elsewhere.
Right. Yeah, it's the difference between the guy that does everything and scaling up and becoming someone who doesn't have to do everything but is able to delegate those things, right? It's the help. And so I think we often know how to grow internally with help. We add more people to our team and stuff like that. But when to look outside of our company for help, I think is still kind of a foggy strategy for a lot of people that at the top level of their organizations. And so we want to talk today just briefly about some advantages and disadvantages of going at it alone versus going at it with some help. And to say that there are advantages to going at it alone, I know seems counterintuitive to or counterproductive to the topic that we're having today, Blake. But there is, like you said, there are some advantages, especially early on, for you to kind of go at it alone. Right? There's no one to answer to. You have a sense of autonomy at some level. Everything stays internal, so you're able to kind of move quicker. You move at this fast, like you said, you want to get there fast but get there far. Those are two different things. But some disadvantages, Blake, that I think we have in going out alone, this is where we really want to lean in with our topic today, is that there's a lot of limitations in going at it alone. There's limitations on your knowledge and the experience that you're able to bring, because it's just you, right? It's just one person's knowledge and experience, or just one organization's, or just one team's knowledge and experience. Also, their resources, time, hours, right? If you have 5 people on your team working 40 hours a week, that's only 200 hours. Did I do that math right in there real quick on top of my head? Psst, math, nailed it. Right, but if you bring in some outside help, you can multiply those hours very quickly, while having your team working on something else. You know what I'm saying? So you're not taking your team's time to scale up the thing that you need to scale up. They're able to continue doing what they do best while you bring in outside help. And then there's also this bottlenecking thing that we talked about a few episodes ago, right? Where you don't have the right people in the right place, and all of a sudden you can't go any further, right? You've peaked. What do you see in those advantages and disadvantages of going alone, Blake?
Yeah, so disadvantages, I see this, like you kind of mentioned that whole, they're able to focus on the thing they're really good at. And that's very true. The disadvantage of them focusing on things, or you focusing on things that you're not good at, is that your like what it takes you to do that said thing takes 4 times longer than somebody else who's really good at that thing and knows that thing. So not only are you like, it's like a misuse of time. Like if time were money, you were spending it bad there. Okay. Like, so that's where you want to be able to say, okay, not only can I focus on the thing I'm good at, but now I'm not spending 4 times the time on the thing I'm not very good at because I'm trying to just bootstrap it. The other thing with advantages, and I know this is maybe counter what we're talking about, but I think it's important to see. Like, I love David Goggins. I know he's controversial to some people, but I love David Goggins. He is went through Hell Week 3 times, Navy SEAL, Army Ranger, in the Air Force. Now I think he's like one of those people who parachutes in and fights fires and stuff. Like, he is an extreme person. And you read his books, they're just phenomenal. And the thing I love about him is he takes things to such extremes because he wants to know the capacity one person has, his capacity, what is the full capacity he has. And I think there is, and maybe I'm getting a little preachy here on the wrong side, but I do think there is an aspect that we need to know our capacity of what we can do. And that's really good. But the capacity he was trying to figure out were things he was also working hard and gifted at. So I do think that this is not a call to like, oh, you don't need to do it alone, so you can just go relax on a beach and drink your mojitos. But if there is a time you're supposed to be figuring out your capacity and your ability, I do think there's good advantages to doing it alone to figure that out. But in those books, his books, the thing he'll say is, like, going to these extremes is very impactful and there's a lot of purpose to it, but there are a lot of consequences. And he'll tell you that very much straight up. Like, his body was wrecked, almost died because of all the sheer trauma he was putting on his body. this is where I'm saying like that same thing's true here in business. You can figure out your capacity and that's good so that you don't have a very low capacity. You know what I mean? Like, oh, I hit
Yeah.
tension and I quit. Well, that's not good. Like you want to have a little bit of fight in the dog, you know what I'm saying? But at the same time, don't let the consequence of wanting to have that so bad hurt the rest of your team and your company.
Yeah, that's really good. Knowing your capacity helps you to know where you need to look for help eventually, right? So,
That's right.
yeah, I think that's great. Moving on to the advantages and disadvantages of asking for help. Some disadvantages. I'll start there so that we can end on the advantages. So, some disadvantages could be some upfront investment, some
Mhm.
upfront time investment, some upfront financial investment, some upfront investment from some of your team members that you might need them to disseminate some information to the outside help that you're bringing in,
Mm.
which also leads to a larger time investment, like we talked about earlier with the going faster, going far. Like you can get there faster probably alone,
Mm.
but you're not going to go as far as you can with help. And so those are some disadvantages there. Shifting quickly to the advantages, like we've kind of hinted at already, massive advantage in your time because you can multiply it, scalability because you can multiply that, and experience because you can multiply that. So those three multipliers alone, time, scalability, and experience, to me as a business owner are worth the investment right out the gate. But I want to ask you, Blake, about training up those on your team and what that advantage looks like between some people with their natural instincts and talents that they already have.
Yeah. Yeah, there's definitely those people on your team um, that can walk into a room and know what's going on, you know, or know what kind of environment they're in. Those people have a natural instinct, which I think is incredible. And I feel very gifted in that same area, being able to like read culture pretty quick. But there's a very big difference between that, having instinct in those moments, and having intuition and the ability to scale something within your team. So I think these people are great. And I would say always be building these people up who have that natural tilt and understanding. But it doesn't, don't read that for an understanding of how to fix the problem, right? It's like coming up to a crime, or not a crime, coming up to like an accident, and you see someone there and they've clearly got a broken leg, and the first thing, you know, the person walks up, they can see that, they can understand their surroundings. That's great. Do they know how to fix the problem?
Hmm.
That's, I think that's what we're dealing with here a lot of times.
Yeah,
And a lot of times we say, "Oh, they noticed a lot of things really quick, therefore they must be the right person." They might be, and I would definitely say you want someone with that natural instinct. But if they don't
absolutely.
have the intuition of what to do next, that becomes the thing where we put a whole bunch of or a whole bunch of responsibility on their shoulders, but no understanding of, do they understand business?
Hmm.
Do they understand the type of salesperson you need versus the type of ops person? Do they understand how to make sure you rightly onboard people? Probably not, right? Like there is so much that goes into that intuition side that we just trust the instinct way too much. And what ends up happening here is true burnout. The person burns out because they're not hitting the results they want to hit in an area they love a ton, because they don't know the right tool set here. And it takes a ton of time to get there too. So it is an advantage to have these people on your team. I would say build them ecologically. I'm not going to say fast or slow. I think they need to build them up in the right time. Build them up, if they're a salesperson and they have this tilt, build them up in the sales side first, right? Like work to the right area that they're already in currently.
Yeah.
But don't mistake instinct for intuition though.
Yeah, absolutely. Uh, I think, Blake, too, as we're shifting into certain areas that we need to ask for help versus other areas that we may kind of feel like we have them on lock. We were talking earlier before we started recording about there tend to be some areas within our organizations where we automatically know, hey, even if I do know, you know, this much, I kind of know my limitations, right? That David Goggins, I kind of know my capacity
Mhm.
on this. So immediately I'm going to go, that's over my head. I'm going to ask, right? IT is usually one of them, right? Hey, you know what? I tried turning it off and turning it back on. Still, it's
Yeah.
still, there's still something going on here. And that's above my knowledge base. What are some others like that, Blake, that we tend to kind of reach out to really easily?
Yeah, you mean as far as like a disadvantage?
No, like it ones that yeah, ones that we know we need to help. Like I said, with IT, like if your computer crashes and you try
Yeah.
to restart it, okay, well, I got to reach out to somebody externally here. We don't have an IT person
Yeah.
necessarily on staff. I'm gonna have to reach out to Geek Squad or somebody like that, right? To like go out and fix this thing. What are some other areas where you think that we naturally go or are quicker to reach out for when we need help in certain areas of our companies?
I think a lot of times it's when we're in transitions for the first time or so, or when we're trying something new.
Mm,
That's where I see people maybe reach out too quick at times.
yeah,
Um, but when they've learned that they get help in something when they reach out, I think I see them reach out quicker. But
yeah.
I think one area that I've worked hard in is like how do you get someone to get there quickly by putting them in some fire so that they
Mm,
get to understand that thing quickly. Um, but honestly, man, when I'm thinking about this whole scenario here, like when we need someone who is really good at finance on your team, you're like, I need someone who's a finance person
yeah.
because there's complexities I don't understand because we're going from 1 million to 3 million a year or 3 million to 5 or 5 to 10. We're transitioning and I've never done this. So I need someone who has this understanding at another level. When we need someone in finance like that, you go get someone in finance like that. When I
Yeah.
need someone who understands the operational complexities or how to simplify complexity to my team in a I need a certain Six Sigma or some project manager who has understanding in this area of construction, then I go out and I get that. But when we look at culture, I think it's one of those areas that we don't see in the same type of vein of finance, operations, HR, whatever you want to call that. We don't look at it in the same way. We look at culture like it's some organic aspect that we just let Mother Nature do its thing, right?
Yeah, whatever happens, happens.
But it's not. Like
Mm-mm.
it takes intentionality, an extreme amount of intentionality. And you need someone, and I'm not just trying to like push us here. I'm telling you, don't use us. Go find someone who does this type of thing because you need someone who understands culture and scalability. Okay. I just put those two things and I sistered them up in a nice, like, sugar cream pie. Okay. But that is it. It is culture and scalability. And especially when culture goes across all those areas. It goes across your sales. You need that sales guru. You need someone who understands culture in that way. You need that financial person. You need someone who understands culture in that way. And I'm not saying you have to find someone who's a financial guru and a culture guru, because I'm not sure you will. You might, but you might not. What I'm saying is you need to find someone who hits culture in that way and understands business at a certain level because culture is our multiplier in these areas and it is the thermometer in the longevity of your vision. You're not going to get to that vision point and have it sustain the way you want it to unless you get this multiplier effect figured out. Okay. Sales will fall, ops will fall, finance will fall if you don't have that cultural aspect. And it might not happen tomorrow and it might not happen the next day. But when you start just taking your mind off those things, it'll get to such a point that you're going to say, I don't know how we got here. I don't know how we got to this point. And it's okay, but I'm telling you what the issue is. You're not able to keep people. You're not able to develop people quick enough. The opportunities are so much that you don't have the people to take care of them. And now you got quality issues. You're letting your team, you're letting your customer down because you don't have longevity and you don't have these things in places. And I know you want it to be the case, but it's not happening. And if you don't get someone there, and I'm not just trying to give ourselves a pitch here, but I'm going to right now. You need someone like the culture base who understands both business and culture and scalability. Not because those are fun synergy words to say out loud, but because they are the things that are going to be a multiplier to longevity and scalability. You'll get there. You might get there to having like, wow, we just grew from 1 million to 10 million. But I'm going to tell you, 10 million has all of its own expenses that you maybe weren't ready for, and it's going to punch you in the face. And are you ready to push through that if you haven't got that culture part in effect? Because when you get punched in the face and you got there too quick and you don't have a good foundation, you're going to turn around and look at your friends and they're not going to be there. Okay.
I love what Mike Tyson says. He famously says everyone has a plan until they get punched in the face. So it's the same thing we're talking about here. It's like you might have a plan until you get punched in the face. And what I heard, Blake, too, while you were talking is how important it is and how hard I would encourage the business owner, leader listening or watching this right now to remember how hard it was and how hard it was to find the right people that they got on their team finally, and what it meant to them when they finally did get that right person or right persons on their team.
Yeah.
That should be enough motivation to you to want to build a culture and an environment around them and such that not only keeps them there, but scales them up as well.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So like, let's not be so comfortable that we've arrived because we have the right people, right? There were a lot of right people on the Titanic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Right. They had a lot of the right things going for them, but they didn't pay enough attention to their surroundings to understand that they needed more help than what they thought they needed. And so that's what we're getting at today is you need to, I always tell my coaching clients that I work with to think about future you.
Yeah.
Right. It's not about today you. Today you is only thing today you needs to be focused on is how to set up future you or future company for success. So setting future you up for success and setting future your team and your future business up for success begins by today asking for the type of help that you need. And that's what we're here for.
Yep. And can I say something to that? Because this is like when I've written a book on culture. Okay. And that's not like a flex here. It's going to lead to what I'm about to say here. Okay. And then you throw it up on the video. That's funny. I've written a book on culture. Our team is amazing at Ridgeline Electrical. They're amazing and have a great culture. We need help because we want to have a scalable long-term company that has someone come alongside and help us in this. And that's why we use the culture base. We use them because it helps us in certain areas. And it doesn't, like, I think a lot of people are like, well, as soon as they're on, I got to have them forever. Maybe, but maybe not. Maybe it's we need to get this area figured out because we're good in this area and good in this area, but I need someone's help here in this area. And for us, like we just brought on the culture base for helping with our process aspect. How do we get these processes in line? How do we get these things leveled out that we're hitting the right stuff at the right time? Okay, now we've got our processes and they're hitting culturally, they're hitting the people, they're using them right. Okay, now what do we go to? Now what do we jump onto so that we're jumping into the next thing? Because as you grow, you're in scale, you're going to have to keep growing and scaling. And so that means that you're constantly checking different areas and then put someone in charge of that. And so, okay, here's what our processes look like. Here's how they're going to move long-term. Now let's go to the next thing and develop it too. So it doesn't mean you have like, well, we're not bad. If your mind is, we're not bad, we don't need this. Okay, we're not bad. Like we have a 4% turnover rate. We don't need this, but I want it because I want to continue to grow and scale. And I'm telling you, if your turnover rate is worse than that, you need it. Okay. Like you do need this. So shameless plug there, use the code or go get someone, go get something to help with this, but stop treating it like Mother Nature's going to do the trick. It's not.
Yeah, that's good. So we'll end today's episode by reminding you of how you can get us to help you scale your teams that we talked about. So you can go to theculturebase.com, click around there, find out all about us. But mainly, when you want to click on the strategy button so that you can get on our calendar and we can begin having these conversations with you about what we can do to scale your team to the next level. It starts by asking for help. You want to set up future you for success. Today's the day to do that. culturebase.com/strategy. Next time, we're going to get into some more practical steps on how to continue building this culture that you're trying to build in this ideal culture that we talk about sometimes. And we're going to do that by talking about connecting the team. How do you connect the team so that you can grow together and do greater things together and scale together? So that'll be next time on The Culture Base, episode 37. We'll be back with you next week on the Culture Base podcast.